I'm up early in the morning. He's in the middle of his day and he's squeezed us into his calendar. He's a busy man. Jamie Greaves, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this. Yeah, I know I've been all over the show. It's taken me a while, but here we are. And for the folks listening on audio, you can watch us on YouTube. You'll see Jamie there looking fit in his gym wear. So ready to help us gain speed. But before we do that, tell us about you, please. Give us the bio as to where you came from to get to where you are, Jamie.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is in golf. I've played golf since the age of 8, which is closing in on 25 years now. That's gone a bit too quickly.
You know we're close to me, right? I mean, I've forgotten how long ago 8 was when you finished.
But yeah, I played junior golf growing up. Golf was my sport. I played every sport basically, but golf was from a pretty early age. Golf was the one that I was kind of excelled at a little bit. I went to college. I got to a plus figure handicap, so kind of elite amateur level. Wasn't really kind of good enough to turn pro and compete off that level of golf. But it's always been a passion of mine, and I suppose my main weakness as a golfer back when I was kind of 16, 18 was always distance. So that led me down the path of what could I do to hit the ball further. I'd always been involved in gym work and fitness work from kind of my other sports that I played growing up. So it seemed quite a natural kind of transition to see how fitness work, how strength work could potentially impact upon swing speed. It's something that I wish I'd done back when I was kind of 10, 12, learning the game.
Yes, you know what, you sort of touch a nerve there with me because look, we were both good golfers. I was pretty good. Never really had the speed, but when I was growing up back in or getting into golf back in the oh goodness, I'm going to date myself, back in the early 80s. It was about swinging smoothly and hitting the ball in the fairway. And I'm not discounting. I'm the first one for accuracy. Hit the ball in play first. But it's just a different thing. And you referenced you played other sports. If I read correctly, you got an injury, which kind of drove you towards golf a little bit too. But the comment I'm wanting here too, because golfers are now athletes, and you seeing this. And here at the start of 2024, I want to challenge everyone watching this and listening to this to go and develop the athlete within before they're starting to try and like hit the ball further. Am I crazy with this?
No, absolutely. I think golf has shifted dramatically, really, probably in the last 10, 15 years. I mean, even the kind of elite players I work with that are maybe kind of 25 to 30, they still grew up probably in the same era of golf that I did. I can remember being told, don't try and hit the ball hard, hit the middle of the face. Don't worry about distance. Distance will come later. When you're 18, 20, you can start thinking about trying to hit the ball harder and hit it further. And, now it's completely, flip reversed on that. We're teaching 8, 10, 12-year-olds to hit it hard and hit it far first.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can develop kind of the rest of the game. It's much easier to take a 16-year-old that has, if we look at like the men's game, 100, maybe 15, 120 mile an hour swing speed, or on the women's side of it, maybe around 100 mile an hour. It's far easier to take a natural athlete who moves well, can generate power, can hit the ball a long way, but maybe needs to refine, course management or dispersion or tidy up their short game a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's far easier to do it that way than to take a very good, short, straight hitter that's 16 that can only generate 105 mile an hour clubhead speed. It's practically impossible for that person to kind of make it on tour, whereas the athlete that's maybe a bit raw around the edges but has speed, they've got a far better chance. So it's a completely different way of looking at it now versus like I say, even 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I'm a big sports fan as you are, and I was watching the Australian Open tennis, and everything's just getting faster, and people are hitting harder and moving better, and And now I know folks are probably listening to this, watching this, and going, okay, this is all fine and dandy for the teenager, but I'm in my 40s, and life is catching up with me. On this very show, I've had people talk about the windows to develop speed. I think I want to reframe that, because look, I don't care who you are, where you are, what station in life you are, you can get in better shape, move better, and then as a result, pick up more speed. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the windows of speed, the kind of 8, 10, 12, 14 range, yes, they are kind of like our golden chance, I suppose. We're never going to get that time again. But I'm a firm believer that every golfer can pick up some speed and pick up some distance. And I think it's being shown now. I'm a big fan of people like Phil Mickelson, people like Podrick Harrington, generating, close to, if not slightly over 180 mile an hour ball speed into their 50s.
Yeah.
Their competitive numbers, even on the PGA Tour. And, everyone can pick up a little bit of speed. I think, obviously, like most things, if you do it when you're young, you've got a slightly better chance, and that tends to kind of stay with you throughout your kind of career. If I look at the longest hitters that I've been fortunate enough to work with, they all kind of had a similar story of swinging fast when they were young.
Yeah.
So that is definitely something that's obviously beneficial. But most golfers, when they start working on the right things, can definitely pick up a little bit of yardage. And this game's much easier if you have a little bit more yardage.
Yeah, no kidding. Look, I'm 53. I'm giving away probably my swing speed, but my speed is kind of in the 150s for the ball. So I'm listening to you, and I'm like, yeah, we go. 2024 is the year, and I'm going to commit to it. And look, I've partnered with Ripstick, and I do the drills and stuff, but there's also a mindset to it, because I'm that guy that somewhere deep inside, when I learned the game, it was like swing smooth and stuff like that, and hit it in the center. And so there's this governor on me, if you will.
Yeah.
And when I get there and I look down the fairway and there's bunkers and water and trees and stuff, and I'm the caress the ball down the fairway guy, as opposed to get up there and go, okay, let this thing go. And I use
Yeah.
the let it go, because to me, I think there's a misconception in fast and maybe timed. So help people too, because the more athletic we get, I feel like the better you time your swing, and so then you don't have to work as hard for speed. Am I nuts in my understanding?
No, you're spot on there with both points, actually. So having done a lot of speed work with golfers, particularly good golfers, there's quite a big difference between those that grew up just kind of swinging fast and those that grew up really prioritizing accuracy and strike location. So one of the big things I do when I do speed work with people, whichever kind of like, there's loads of different speed sticks out there now, or if you use your own driver, whatever kind of method you choose on that, the ones that have grown up, really being told to hit the middle of the face, value dispersion, those kind of things, they struggle to kind of give up control on speed training.
Yeah.
So when we're doing maximum speed training, our general goal is just speed. We don't care if the ball goes 60 yards left. I don't even care if you top it. In fact, one of the fastest swings I've ever seen from a client, he clocked over 140 mile an hour with his driver, and he literally hit the ball about 3 foot. Okay. But the goal was speed.
Yeah.
And people have a very hard time sometimes putting that to one side. Now, obviously, when it comes to kind of on-course speed, you don't want to be swinging like that. But I think it's important to kind of recognize that there's two numbers, really. There's your top end speed, and then there's kind of like what would be your gaming speed, or a speed that you'd feel comfortable on the golf course at. So if you can have a top end speed of, say, 120, then on the golf course, you should be able to swing in the kind of 113, 115 range and still be able to hit that middle of the face, keep the ball in play, and kind of game with that speed. But you need the top end speed first. And that's something that, again, the really accurate players sometimes struggle to gain that top end speed. They're too concerned with where the ball goes. So I've kind of come up with a little kind of 4-step, I suppose, progress for people when they do their speed work.
All right.
The first stage would be that you would do your speed work without a ball. So this could be where you use your speed stick. So it could be just swinging driver with no ball as fast as you can.
All right.
Stage two would then be hitting a ball but into a net, or hitting a ball into a simulator with the screen turned off.
So you're
So
not
you can't,
watching where the ball's going.
yeah, you can't see the ball.
Okay.
So the sole goal there would be speed again.
Yeah.
And then stage three would be bringing that out onto a range. So now, obviously, you can see where the ball goes, but obviously, it's not a golf course. So the consequences are still a little bit low. So if you do swing fast and you hit 150 yards, right, it's not the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then stage four would actually be to take, one of these like portable radars out onto the golf course now and see what effect that has. With some of my tour players, I will even go further and do it on a hole maybe that they like a reachable par five or a kind of a wide open tee shot.
Yeah.
And then a hole that they don't like. And you can get, you can have 4 or 5 different numbers there. And that can tell you information. It can tell you whether top end speed is the problem or whether it's actually just a mental commitment to speed on the golf course.
You know what? I've got to stop you there because I'm listening to this going, freaking genius. But then I'm going, so freaking logical. But you know what? And me, I'm a golf teacher deep down who's now in broadcast. Situational stuff in golf is real. I've watched golf swings fall down just because of a certain wind condition. And it's uncanny how you say take the radar to the course, do it on different holes, and you will see variations in speed just because of what the external stimuli is.
Yeah, absolutely. It reveals so much. I will often have golfers and they'll talk to me. I'll do the strength and power testing with them. I'll do the speed stick work or the driver speed work into my net. I know they're faster, and then they'll talk about I'm not really seeing it on the golf course. And in those situations, that's why it's great to take your radar out onto the golf course, especially in practice rounds, and then see if you can kind of ramp it up whilst you're out on the golf course. Because again, as golfers, especially as good golfers, we kind of go into our comfort zone on the golf course in particular, and it's very hard to kind of break out of it. It was one of the things I was kind of most impressed about, I suppose, when Bryson done his speed chasing probably 3 or 4 years ago now, is that he got the speed and then he took it straight out onto the golf course, which must be so mentally very difficult to commit to.
Yeah.
You see a lot of people, they gain the speed and then they kind of revert back to type, I suppose, on the golf course itself.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I want to one more question before we get to some of the exercises. And for the folks listening on audio, I'll describe and Jamie's going to show. So go to YouTube, or go subscribe. I mentioned it earlier, but here's the thing that I see because I get to see these guys at their best, the very best at their best on the PGA Tour on the weekends when I work for CBS. And the ball leaves like a freaking homesick angel. I mean, it's going so fast and climbing so high. And the movement is fast. It's like you watch Rory and it's like a whistle of arms, and yet it's still elegantly balanced. Now, when you watch Bryson, when he first started, was just like a big, heavy guy going as hard as he could. But he then also, under the kind of counsel of Kyle Berkshire, started to realize there's efficient ways of creating speed too. Speed, athleticism, balance, strength, and stuff. So I want to talk to you about just this athletic attitude with it, because going faster means things go or the body moves in a coordinated manner. And I've kind of found, and this is where I want your counsel, that when you challenge someone to just swing freely and swing fast, the athlete within sort of shows up. And so that kinematic sequence that everyone talks about, it happens. Yet then there's a ball on the ground and there's trouble everywhere. Then we're like, oh my goodness, just hit the ball. And then that thing goes out the window. Are you feeling me here?
I'd love your comment. No, absolutely. So I think obviously when you're talking about those, the Rorys and the Brysons and those kind of things, those elite speed, that's where you really need the strength, strength in the body, firstly to generate those speeds, but also so that the body can obviously cope with it. When you're talking about those levels of clubhead speed, huge stresses on the body. So we need the body strong so that it's kind of robust and can deal with it. It doesn't prevent injuries, but it can help.
I'm going to interrupt. You got me thinking. You mentioned Bryson. He's been on the show. Do you know he gave himself a concussion during one of his speed protocols when they were hitting him?
I
Seriously,
didn't know that. No.
follow through was going so hard, hit him in the back of the head. He concussed himself. But anyway, I digress.
But yeah, so you need obviously you need the strength, you need the stability. That's where obviously these guys and girls are training in the gym so that they can cope with those speeds, so that they can generate higher levels of speeds, so that they can swing and not be kind of all over the place. So there's this misconception that faster equals kind of ugly swings. It equals the ball going all over the place. I know from social media, as soon as you say someone's swinging faster, they go, oh, well, they're going to hit it all over the place now. Whereas actually, again, a lot of what we're seeing now is when people move faster, they may well just move better. They may interact with the ground better. I've seen kind of force plate data where people swing speed sticks and they actually interact with the ground far better than when they're swinging their own driver. So actually, sometimes just being more athletic, moving faster, can help from a swing technique point of view as well, which I suppose, again, goes against what a lot of people believe.
Tremendous. Okay, now let's get to it because you've hit the misconceptions, which I did want to talk about. And then you use something like strength, and people like think of strong, like, well, I certainly do. And you think of guys doing, these deadlifts, and they got these big plates on the side of stuff, and you see the odd workout where some golfers in the gym and they're really pushing heavy stuff. But you can help us just to go in there and have it sort of non-invasive and just use a slam ball, which I think is awesome because I had a couple young ladies in the gym yesterday, and we were just doing plyometric kind of stuff, jumping, skipping, or just being athletic and moving fast, and the heart rates get up, so it's a cardiovascular exercise. But in the same vein, they're getting stronger, and I feel like the slam ball stuff is great. So you got a few exercises people can do. Let's dive in, and feel free to demonstrate if you want to, and I'll describe.
Yeah. So if I just touch on that ever so slightly. So when I'm looking at a golfer, I think of kind of like buckets on a range, so to speak. So there'd be like 5 buckets on a driving range. You've got mobility and movement, you've got strength, you've got kind of power, explosiveness, you've got coordination, you've got kind of conditioning. So as a golfer, you want to be chucking, a few balls in each, really. So the heavy stuff that you see, some of the tour players doing, that is highly beneficial. It helps from kind of increasing robustness and increasing power. But as a golfer, we don't just need to train like a power lifter. We also need to be able to move well.
Yeah.
We need to be able to do the explosive stuff. We also need reasonable levels of conditioning. So the med ball stuff that I'll go over, they'll fit into kind of like the explosive bucket. And every golfer that I train is looking to do some explosive movement. Generally with the upper body, it's medicine ball stuff. With the lower body, it's kind of hops and jumps. So I've got a kind of 3 kg slam ball with me.
Right.
Now, when I'm doing this with people, I always say go quite low. So kind of 2 to 5 kilos, or kind of 4 to kind of 12 pounds. Fairly low, because the goal is obviously speed.
Yeah.
So I'll move the recording back a little bit, and then I'll have a little demo at a few exercises.
Well, while you set up there, I just want to describe to folks, you go ahead and do your thing. I want to describe to folks where Jamie was right. Is like, I made the mistake when I was helping, people gain a bit more speed from what I've learned from this show and from trainers and such. And I was getting out there with 20-pound slam balls and things like that. And that is not necessarily the explosive speed. The explosive speed is the thing, and this athletic coordination. And Jamie, I don't know if you can hear me now. I feel like just the athlete being athletic, is the first stop to really getting the speed. I mean, I can be strong, but not have that athletic explosiveness, and that's not necessarily gonna help me garner speed. Am I correct in my assumption there? He's still setting up. Can you hear me now, Jamie? Okay. So what he's doing, folks, is he's got the slam ball in his hand, and he's just winding up, sort of palms on either side of the ball, winding up, and then with his trail arm, his right arm, he's going from bent to extended. So he's just slamming the ball straight down into the ground in front of him. Now the next one, he's bent down onto his right knee with his left knee at 90 degrees out in front. He's making big windmills where he's taking the club from his follow-through side and slamming the ball into the ground right by his side. Very cool exercise. Now, the third one, he's got the slam ball held out with his arms out extended in front of him, palming the ball basically, and he's winding up on a horizontal plane and just unwinding and rotating as fast as he can. Again, all the movements to the stuff, there's 3 of them. They're fast, they're explosive, and they're with the slam ball that for the Imperial folks, I would say it sort of looks like it's about 6-7 pounds. And Jamie's was like 2 to 4 kilos. All right, Jamie, those were very cool. I went through the 3 of them. I did my best to describe them. So why don't we walk through them in the order that you did? Because one thing I could see as you were doing it, now it was a demo, but I could see you were working. I could see the athleticism, the movement. I could see it in your face. It was like you were exerting yourself, even though it wasn't really heavy weights. I think
so
that's the mindset to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I see med ball, slam ball stuff done all the time. If you type in, golf fitness into social media or Google, that's one of the first things you'll see. You see people throwing balls around, everywhere. But when I watch people throw balls around, it just looks like they don't mean it. So I'm a huge fan of what we call intent. So when I'm getting people lifting weights in the gym, I want that bar moving with a bit of speed. When I get people jumping, I want them jumping high or I want them jumping far. And when I want people throwing balls, I want them to mean it. I want them to throw it through the floor or throw it through the wall. One of the strength and power tests I use with people, I've got a ball that has like a built-in radar with it. It's called the ballistic ball, and it measures how fast, how much force they put into the ball as they throw it. So you can do the right exercise, but there's quite a big difference between doing the right exercise and then doing it, properly, meaning it. If you're going to train for power, you've got to mean it.
Got you. Well, absolutely. I mean, I think about that too. Like I was talking about the young ladies I was working with yesterday. It wasn't heavy, but I'm like, when the box jump got higher, you could see how then they had to engage themselves more. It's not like I'm just hopping onto this box. Now I'm jumping onto this box. So it's that mindset you speak of.
Yeah, absolutely. Mindset on power training is huge. If you're doing speed, it'd be like doing speed swing work, but just swinging at like 80%. It defeats the purpose of doing speed swing work. So I class medicine ball stuff and I class jump in that, almost in that same bracket. So it needs to be done quite low rep, but with maximum intent. Every one, you need to really mean it.
Okay, let's describe the 3 exercises you did. I'll give it to you and you can go from there. The first one, you had the med ball in front of you, basically in golf posture. It looked like you were almost palming the ball. Then you'd wind up into your backswing with your trail arm bent. And from there, it was just like you were trying to extend that trail arm and drive the ball straight into the ground in front of the stance. Name that and describe it, please.
Yeah, so I call that my single arm medicine ball push. It's in golf posture. We know that explosive upper body correlates very nicely to clubhead speed. Particularly in the downswing, our trail pec, so our trail kind of chest is working quite hard to generate speed. Which again, is a bit of a misconception because people think things like, bench pressing and things is bad for golfers. But actually, the chest is quite heavily involved in generating high levels of clubhead speed. So we want to train it to be strong, and then we want to train it to be explosive. And that's obviously a good movement to train it to be explosive. Golfers like it because obviously it is in golf posture. It does look a little bit kind of golf specific. Not that necessarily makes it better, but obviously it does create a little bit of buy-in sometimes.
You know what I liked about it? And for the folks on audio, go watch because you can see it. And also JG Golf Fitness. Jamie's got all these he's got loads of videos. It's how I found him. What I loved about it too is that I see so many amateur golfers where the downswing becomes this big heave with their
Yeah.
shoulders. And their left side, their lead side, pulls out, and they're all discombobulated and out of time and out of sequence. Where with that, you wound up into your backswing some, and then you could see the movement like you were plugging to the ground, but your right shoulder was pushing downward. And so you've gotten almost tilted as opposed to just spinning out of the shot too much.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I use it from a power production point of view, but I definitely think there are some useful swing characteristics that people can pick up from that. It's quite easy to kind of push down into your left foot as you do the movement. It gets the feeling of, I suppose, rotation from the ground up, kind of corkscrewing yourself into the floor to rotate. Whereas, like you say, a lot of amateurs just kind of spin to rotate. Whereas the best players push down, and then kind of that pushing down starts to rotate them open.
Okay. Let's say folks just went and did these 3 exercises you did. They've got 30 minutes. How many reps, how many sets? I mean, what do you recommend for this?
Yeah. So on medicine ball stuff, I'm looking for probably 3 to 5 reps. I would do both sides. So on that one, I would also do kind of my left side. It might not be as powerful as coordinated, but I would do it that side. I'd be doing 2 to 3 sets, and I'd actually be resting probably 90 seconds in between. That's something that, again, golfers aren't very good at. I'm not, it becomes kind of, I suppose, the intent behind the exercise. You could use medicine balls and use them as a conditioning tool. If you just kept throwing them over and over again, obviously you're going to elevate the heart rate. It's going to turn into a conditioning session. But for what I'm trying to do there, I'm trying to challenge power. So I want, like I said earlier, I want each rep to kind of mean it and to be powerful and forceful. So I need to rest adequately between each set. So low rep, high quality.
Fantastic. Right. The second one was where you dropped onto your trail knee, your right knee, left leg out in front of you, basically at 90 degrees. So you basically foot, right knee was pulled behind you naturally. And then you were making what looked like a big windmill. And you were slamming the ball into the ground on the side that you were kneeling on. So it was your trail. Name that. And
so that's what I call a half kneeling rotational slam. Rotational slams I'm a big fan of because we're encouraging that kind of pulling motion. So whereas our trail kind of chest is quite active in the downswing, our lead kind of lat muscle is very active in our downswing.
All right.
So that's where, although golf is, you know, we've got 2 feet on the ground, that kind of thing, it's very asymmetrical in nature. One side is kind of pushing, one side is pulling. So kind of pulling strength and power, again, is very useful. Rotational slams are a great way to develop that. You can do that standing, or like I did in kind of the half kneeling position. And we're just looking to generate that force down. But this one can also, I suppose, double up as a bit of a mobility exercise because I'm rotating through my trunk. So the more I slam the ball behind me, the more I've obviously moved through that trunk area. So it's a power exercise, but it's also kind of doubling up and getting us to move a little bit better through that trunk area as well.
Hey, sensational. And you know what I love about it too, because in the action where you had the ball out to your left side, your lead side, and then you swung it in a big windmill over your head and slammed it into the ground. I see so many golfers where they get to the top of the swing and they pull the club down and in front of them. And then I see the really good strikers where that thing almost widens. And I know they're all trying to lag the club, but there's this, the body is rotating to the target, but the arms are going away and you're creating width, which is a great element to more time to create clubhead speed. I love the exercise for that very reason.
Yeah, again, you know, I'm using it from a power point of view, but there's definitely elements to these exercises that can certainly help people maybe feel things that they maybe should be feeling a little bit more in their golf swing, but aren't. So the medicine ball stuff is quite athletic. It's really interesting when you watch people move in medicine ball stuff. They tend to move in a slightly more athletic manner than maybe what they would in their golf swing. And if you could actually get a little bit more of that athleticism into their golf swing, they'd probably hit the ball a lot better.
Sensational. Okay, I'm looking at the time. I'm sure you've got clients waiting. So quickly, the last one, where you were basically, you were palming the med ball out in front of you, arms somewhat extended, and you were winding up and just basically swinging back to contact. It wasn't a full
Yeah.
swing through, and it was on a horizontal plane. Name that one for me and describe it.
So that's my medicine ball rotate and stop.
Yeah.
Again, if you looked at kind of golf fitness on social media, you'd see a lot of kind of medicine ball tosses where people are throwing the ball into a wall. I'm a big fan of that exercise, but obviously not everyone has a wall to throw into. So this one here, it's as if I was going to throw it into the wall, but then I hit the brakes hard.
Yeah.
So it's slightly different to the medicine ball where you release it, because this actually encourages a braking system. So again, probably linking into what you said earlier about kind of a lot of amateur golfers just spin the hips and they spin the trunk. In a well-sequenced golf swing, there's an acceleration, and then there's also where the lead side kind of breaks, and then other segments catch up, and it produces kind of like a slingshot effect. And we don't tend to train a huge amount of deceleration or braking. And that exercise there is a great way to feel what it's like to kind of really pull up through our lead lat, our lead oblique, and actually stop quite fast. So the analogy I use for people when they're doing that is almost like they're on over here in the UK. We have to, when we do our driving test, we have to do an emergency stop.
Yeah.
And that would be the analogy over here. You've got to go as fast as you can and then hit the brakes as hard as possible and stop. And it really fires up that lead side, those lead obliques.
Yes. It's amazing too. Like when I've done ripstick drills with people with a launch monitor, and they see the speed at which it's going, right? And they'll get to 90. And then they're like, I'm going to get to 95. And then they don't. And they go harder and harder and harder, and they're still seeing around 90, and they get so frustrated. But it's really because of what you described there, because as you try and go harder, you rotating more, and there's not that break at the right time to sling more energy to the club head. Because look, it's about us, but it's also about transmission of speed to the bat and then the ball. So I love what you described there.
Absolutely. The end goal is speed, at the club head down by the ball. A lot of times when people do, swing speed training, they mistake kind of effort for speed. Quite often it's when they get slightly frustrated that the speed's not going up, and then they almost relax into it a little bit. They try a little bit less and the speed goes up, and it's because the speed is now at the right time. Maybe whereas when they were trying so hard and they had quite a lot of tension and they were kind of yanking on the golf club, the speed was there, but it wasn't actually down by the ball, which is obviously where we want the speed.
And largely, folks, this is generic, but pretty much, if you do what Jamie was describing the wrong way, you're going to hit the ball off to your weak side. For a right-hander, that's a right side. If you do this one, the rotate and stop, that's going to help build little baby draws. Hey, listen, you said 3 to 5 reps, 2 to 3 sets, disciplined for the first one. Is it the same sort of thing for the last two, or do you vary those?
Yeah, no, they'd be very similar. Whenever I'm doing medicine ball or jump work, it's kind of in that range. And really resting probably a little bit more than maybe what you think in between, because you want that second and third set to be just as good as the first set.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to give you the parting shot. Is there anything you want to leave with the fan, even if it's motivational? Go for it, Jamie. Let them have it.
And yeah, I'm a big fan. If you follow me on social media, I'm a big fan of kind of little and often adding up. A lot of people get put off from doing kind of engaging in health and fitness things because they think of the time commitment. But if you do something for 10 minutes a day, that equates to over an hour a week. It equates to over 5 hours a month and over 60 hours a year. So if you spend 10 minutes a day working on your kind of strength and power and mobility, in a year's time, you'll have spent 60 hours working on it. You're probably going to be in a little bit better position. So it doesn't need to be in the gym 5 days a week for 2 hours a day. It doesn't need to be that.
That message is heaven sent. Before we got on the call and I was preparing, I was just quickly zipping through social media, and I saw one other doctor talking about an hour's exercise a week. It's been now medically proven will add 3 hours to your life. And he was saying you can have a person who's obese but trains and a person that doesn't train, you're still going to see that. So just that 1 hour a week is going to add time to your life, more time to play golf.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. Keep you in the game for longer.
Right. You mentioned the social media and the website. Please share where folks can find you.
Yeah, so I'm JG Golf Fitness on Instagram and on Twitter or X, and website is the same as well. And yeah, I post particularly on Instagram and X. I'm posting kind of daily content for people, free content to help them with their health and fitness and their golf games.
It's how I found Jamie, folks, and he's fantastic at what he does. And I'm so very thankful you would join us. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for having me.